So, today we're diving deep into Buterin's roadmap for Ethereum rollups, especially his idea of taking off the training wheels. Moving from these initial centralizations to full-scale decentralization.
Absolutely, it's such a key pivot. But what are the main components he's focusing on again?
Right, well, it's all about shedding centralized elements. Firstly, rollups have been relying on these centralized sequencers for ordering transactions. The goal now is to move to multiple independent actors doing that, which really ramps up censorship, resistance, and security.
So it's like instead of having one boss calling all the shots, you get a network of independent decision makers, right?
Exactly. It's like having a whole team of referees instead of just one. And then there's the whole aspect of ensuring that trustless bridges are integrated, meaning rollups can transfer assets or data back to Ethereum without relying on any single, potentially compromised party.
Yep, that makes sense. And what about the proof generation process? I recall Buterin talked about making that decentralized too, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Currently, especially with ZK rollups, generating proofs can be centralized, but the end game here is to open up proof generation so that anyone can participate. It's like democratizing security checks across a broader network, which enhances overall trustlessness and
Got it.
security. And
That sounds revolutionary, but isn't there a risk in, say, leaving proof generation completely in the wild? Like, couldn't that slow things down or lead to inefficiencies?
it's a valid concern, but the idea is that by decentralizing, you spread the load across many participants, like a swarm of workers instead of one central assembly line. Sure, initially there may be some teething issues, but over time, with proper incentives in place, the system should become more robust and efficient.
Right, that's true. Interesting. And what about the permissionless participation aspect? How does that feed into the overall picture?
Great point. Permissionless participation means that anyone, not just pre-approved entities, can join in on the process, whether that's ordering transactions, generating proofs, or even participating in governance. This opens the door for a much more resilient network. It's like, think of it as an open sports league instead of a club that only lets in VIPs.
Exactly. But isn't there some risk in that? I mean, couldn't it lead to chaos or lower standards if everyone can just jump in?
Sure, that's a fair challenge. The trade-off is between open participation and ensuring quality. However, the design aims to incorporate safeguards through decentralized governance mechanisms, which ideally ensure that decision-making is still aligned with community interests. It's not a free-for-all, it's more like open, but with checks and balances built in.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And speaking of governance, how does decentralizing governance tie into this roadmap?
Excellent question. Decentralized governance is central to Buterin's vision. Instead of core teams or centralized bodies making the calls, governance becomes a community affair, possibly via on-chain voting. This way, the community, the actual users, hold the reins, making the whole system more democratic and resilient to censorship or manipulation.
Definitely, that upholds the ethos of decentralization. So in summary, we're looking at eliminating centralized sequencers, ensuring trustless bridges, decentralizing proof generation, and opening up permissions, all culminating in a decentralized governance model.
Exactly. And an essential outcome is enhanced censorship resistance. With a decentralized network, it's much harder for any single entity to block or manipulate transactions, which is a big win for a secure, open ecosystem on Ethereum.
That's a critical point. It's fascinating to see how these changes could reshape the landscape. But I'm curious, do you think this rapid shift out of the training wheels could introduce vulnerabilities during the transition phase?
That's a point that's been raised around the table. Removing those temporary safeguards too quickly might expose systems to unforeseen risks. Yet Buterin's roadmap seems to suggest a careful, staged transition. At least that's what his tweet hints at, starting next year, only recognizing mature protocols.
Right, he's really setting the bar high. I recall his tweet, stage one or bust with a short grace period. That seems like a pretty bold, almost strict stance.
Absolutely. It signals that only rollups that can prove they've moved past the developmental stage where training wheels are holding them up will be acknowledged. This is about pushing the space toward full maturity and autonomy, regardless of personal ties or investments. It might sound a bit tough, but it's intended to prioritize long-term security and decentralization over short-term conveniences.
Gotcha. Now, there's also some discussion about how these rollups still depend on Ethereum's core security, right? Even when we remove the training wheels?
Correct. The idea is to build rollups that both scale Ethereum and inherit its robust security. They are extricating themselves from relying on third-party safeguards while still pegging into Ethereum's underlying consensus. This means, even without additional centralized components, they will benefit from Ethereum's decentralized security model.
Yes, indeed. That's really fascinating because it means rollups aren't just scaling tools. They're evolving into full-fledged ecosystems in their own right, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. They're essentially transitioning from being reliant extra layers to becoming self-sustaining systems with their own decentralized governance and operational models. It's like the difference between a customer ordering off a menu and a self-run kitchen where everyone
Nice
contributes
analogy.
to the recipe.
And isn't one of the big benefits of this evolution ensuring that no single point of failure exists, thus lowering censorship risks?
Exactly. By distributing responsibilities across many independent actors, sequencers, provers, and validators, you significantly mitigate risks. It makes the network a more democratic battlefield where collusion becomes much tougher.
Right, that makes the system resilient. Still, I have to wonder if in practice, achieving full permissionless participation might be more challenging than it seems in theory. There could be inherent incentives that favor larger players.
Absolutely, that's a critique worth noting. In any system where open participation is encouraged, there's the risk that those with abundant resources might dominate. But the proposed governance models and reward systems aim to level the playing field. It's an ongoing challenge in most decentralized projects.
Yeah, that's a
openness
valid,
with
thoughtful
fairness.
point. It's like trying to organize a community potluck. Everyone should contribute, but sometimes a few folks bring the majority of the main dishes.
Haha, exactly. And ensuring that no one hogs the buffet is key. The roadmap emphasizes, and rightly so, that permissionless and decentralized operation is essential, even if maintaining balance remains tricky.
Indeed.
And then there's the topic of decentralized bridges. With trustless bridges, the transfer of assets between rollups and the Ethereum main chain becomes entirely automated and permissionless. This is another cornerstone in achieving
Right, no
full
single gatekeeper to worry about.
decentralization.
Given all these changes, how do you see the maturity of rollups evolving? Do you think this will expedite Ethereum's scaling solutions significantly?
I do. Once rollups can operate without the crutches of training wheels, they're much more in line with Ethereum's core principles. This could potentially not only boost scalability, but also set a precedent for other blockchain ecosystems that might still rely on centralized elements.
Yeah, that's a game changer indeed.
And the ripple effects are huge. More secure, censorship-resistant ecosystems can vastly improve user trust and adoption. At the end of the day, removing these crutches isn't about stripping away safety nets recklessly. It's about maturing the networks into robust, self-regulating entities.
Well said. It sounds like this is a very deliberate, thoughtful process, ensuring that the evolution preserves security while still pushing the envelope on decentralization.
Exactly. It's a bold step, but one that's necessary. It's about aligning with the decentralized ethos that Ethereum always aspired to. And while the path might be bumpy with trade-offs like potential initial vulnerabilities or dominance by larger entities, the long-term vision is
Absolutely.
clear.
And, it's inspiring to see such high standards being set. I just hope that in practice, the community can overcome those practical challenges you mentioned.
For sure. It's definitely a balancing act. But the roadmap provides a solid framework for steadily eliminating centralized points. The commitment to permissionless participation And distributed consensus really lays down a marker for the future of not just Ethereum
That
rollups,
sounds
but
like the
blockchain
future.
scalability at large.
In the end, it all comes down to trust and resilience in the network. If Buterin's vision comes to fruition, then rollups will no longer be just a temporary scaling hack, but a robust, self-sustaining layer that upholds decentralization as its core principle.
Exactly. It's an evolution from a nascent system with training wheels to a full-blown decentralized ecosystem. And while challenges remain, like ensuring fair participation and handling the transition smoothly, if done right, it could set a new standard for
Indeed.
blockchain scalability.
Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. It's clear that Buterin's roadmap isn't just about scaling, but about securing a truly decentralized future for Ethereum rollups.
Absolutely. A very ambitious and necessary step in blockchain evolution. Thanks for the great chat today. Here's to watching the rollups transition from training wheels to fully autonomous systems.
Cheers to that. It's exciting to think about where this will take us in the broader crypto ecosystem.